I know Brent's not gonna be here, but are we gonna be short some others?
I didn't hear from anyone except for Brent about not being here, so.
Well, I printed Brent's fancy email because it was very informative.
Jason was telling me from Olympia that you were working with the Arbor Day.
I had a call with them about, for the tree distribution, once the urban forester's on board, for a, not Arbor Day, but more routine, using their software, but there's no contracts or anything signed. But yes, and that's the one where you can put it down by the parcel and you approve where they plan on planting it, and you can filter what kind of tree for those certain places, and I think it'll be a great tool, but it's not gonna start until.
Yeah, it looked real expensive, and I just was unfamiliar with it.
I mentioned it maybe 8 or 9 months ago, but in passing, I didn't provide any, a link. That was it, but it's developed more since then on their website. But I told the Forestry Roundtable about it, and that's what we learned.
Are we on?
Yep.
All right, let's call to order the tree board, Tumwater, Monday, February 10th, 2025. We have Brent absent, correct?
Correct, yes.
I'll just go ahead and go through roll call. Go ahead, Mike, you go first.
Mike Jackson,
Trent Grantham,
Alex Tracom,
Ryan Ozawa.
Jim Sedor.
and Brody.
Didn't hear anything back from him, but I know last time he was recovering from surgery. He may call in. I'll keep this open just in case he does the same thing from last time.
Is excused for now. Okay, changes to the agenda this evening?
For me.
Tree board member have anything to report? All right. Managers report?
Lots to report.
Perfect, let's get to it.
Okay, first thing's not great news. I figured I would just get it out of the way.
Okay.
We have 15 applicants for the urban forester position
Right.
so far, including many that meet the minimum qualifications. Definitely not 15 though. However, because of the federal memorandum freezing grant funds, even though it was rescinded and even though there was a challenge in court, our grantor doesn't have access to the federal funds and has told us to pause all grant activity. While we have a lot of great applicants, we cannot interview them or proceed with the grant until we learn otherwise, all because of that memorandum from the Office of Budget from at the federal level. We're still accepting applications, but we will not schedule interviews until we get the go-ahead from our grantor.
The applicants know that, I assume.
Yes, we put a posting on the job posting, and we emailed all the applicants that had submitted applications prior that the position is contingent on grant funding. There are a lot of words in the grant application, including the title, that are on now the list of words that are being screened for applications, so we may lose it because of that. But stay tuned. Equity's in the title.
So when does the urban forestry, is there a deadline for submittal for that
For the position,
position?
we're leaving it open while we wait to get guidance. But if we do get guidance from our grantor and from the federal government that the grant, even though we have an executed contract, will be taken away, then we'll have to pivot, and we may not have the funding for the position or the person.
Oh, that's totally illegal. Okay.
Are you free to tell us what the word was that was in there?
Equity is in the title, but the entire focus of the grant was for disadvantaged communities, as you recall. So, equity is definitely one of the flagged words, unfortunately. So is female. Climate element, you all had asked for updates on the climate element. We received almost 200 cells in an Excel of comments. So we are working on incorporating all of those now. We have a climate policy advisory team, kind of an ad hoc advisory group for the climate element, and we're meeting with them next week, go over the feedback and also start working on prioritizing some of the 201 actions that are in the climate element. I am presenting tomorrow night to the Planning Commission, the resilience sub-element, so the climate adaptation, the how do we live with the effects and still do well as a community section of the climate element tomorrow. I have no update on the ordinance updates. It's still as it was last time, where we're waiting until after the comprehensive plan is taken care of, and then the planning staff will have the capacity to restart work on the tree and vegetation protection ordinance, the TMC 16.08. You all asked for an update on the saplings. We have about 50, but we have no formal nursery to support them. These are the meager oak saplings. We're working on finding suitable places to plant them. A lot of our parks are not well suited, but there's some parks. We're looking at Sap Road Park, which isn't like, it's a park, but it's not a formal park. People don't really go there. We think we might be able to fit like 6 there, maybe some at the Palermo wetland in the upland area. We may, if Brent was here, I'd ask if he wants one for the Capitol campus. There was a brief thought of giving them out at Arbor Day, but since they have such specific requirements, I poo-pooed that immediately. I don't think that that's a good use of these. Maybe giving one to the Burke Herbarium or DNR if other agencies want them. I know you're in contact, Jim, with Oak Harbor, if they maybe want some of them too. Like, we can spread the genetic wealth of this wonderful tree. But we're limited as to where we can put them in parks because, of course, they're protected, and we want them to stay there and do well and not cause any conflicts, do it very intentionally. But we have 50, 53, we expect 50 will last the winter because we don't have a formal nursery for them, so they're being taken care of in a way that we've not really done with plants before. But
You want to take those in, Mike? Yeah.
Burnt Ridge had, saplings, could they help raise them?
They're a commercial nursery in,
I think we're just hoping to find homes for them sooner.
I think I sent you the email from
Yes.
Pierce County Conservation District that they were purchasing, and maybe they would be interested in a few to genetically mix it up.
Yeah, there's some cultural significance to these, so we wanted to make sure that we're not just offloading them somewhere, that we respect that they're special and try to be mindful.
What about the tribe?
I don't know if we've done consultation for if they want the saplings, so I will ask.
Of course, there's tribal property, what do we say, inside Tumwater.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, there's.
at least 3 tribes own property in Tumwater,
Yeah, so,
or at gas stations.
I would think that there might be some interest in perhaps, might welcome them, planting them on their property inside the urban growth area.
We can ask, however, we have definitely learned the lesson of that they are not a good roadside tree. So keeping them away from cars is something that we want to make sure that we're doing.
Is there an option of, is there a plan, for example, Sap Road, are you gonna water these for a year or 2?
Okay, if we plant them in a place that requires it, yes, and we're already doing restoration efforts. We don't have solid places for them yet. We are starting to have conversations. At first it was, let's give them away. No, okay, we need to find homes, and I think we're gonna have a meeting scheduled in the next few weeks with the park staff to try to talk about it a little bit more.
I would just recommend parks. I know, for example, that the plan for the park there on Israel Road by the school, they're planning to clear out an area and put in a baseball field by the power lines, Home Depot, west of Home Depot. There are 6 Scary Oaks in there, hopefully they'll be preserved, so we know that it's habitat for that species. And, in clearing that land for baseball fields and things like that, there'll be open space, which will be kept open, which is what the oaks require. So, and as well as the Tumwater, to the Tumwater Park site at the end of
Yeah,
Trails End.
Trails End.
They're not going there. I know that.
There's
There-
one there already, though.
There is one there
I
already.
don't wanna plant one.
They don't want to plant more there.
I thought on the plans it showed 6 to be planted there.
I asked, is there space in any of our parks? And I got a no.
Okay.
Maybe they forgot about that one, because there's that big one there already.
I'm just thinking of parks that are being developed.
Yeah,
That it would be great if could be incorporated.
Yep.
And seedlings are small, everything's gonna be small, they're gonna be
and there's
paid more
one there
attention to them.
already.
So it's an opportunity.
We'll continue to, this was one of the things that you all asked for me to bring every month for an update, so hopefully there's more.
You know,
Provide-
the Oak Harbor group, I don't know if we talked about this, it's a club, and they raise the seedlings in their backyards until they're large enough to plant out. So individuals in the club have 1 or 2 pots of scary oak to care for. And, that might be an option with the Native Planting Society or the Tree Board or
Yeah,
the Boy Scouts or something like that.
You do not want me looking after a tree.
Just want to make sure wherever they're rehomed, that they're given the,
Are you familiar with the Cascadia Oak Partnership, Cascadia Prairie Oak Partnership,
Yes,
called a CPOP?
I
It's
think-
this like group of professionals in the South Puget Sound area dedicated to like prairie and oak
And
conservation.
forest.
yeah, I think I sent, a website months ago with them, but, yeah,
got many a website.
about flowers, yeah.
But it's them, a few like members in that include like the Eco Studies Institute, the Center for Lands Management, and they specifically do a lot of like prairie restoration kind of stuff. I know Wolf Haven too. Those might be some
Yeah, Wolf Haven would be nice.
local organizations that might really appreciate getting some oaks thrown their way.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but, Brewery Park, is that the Olympia Tumwater Foundation, not Tumwater?
We pay the water bill, but it's theirs.
Okay, so I would think they would welcome the Gary Oak at the falls.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, but the historical park wouldn't, that's Tumwater's.
I've gotten a no for that.
But it's disappointing.
We're gonna meet and continue talking about it,
Yeah.
but upon initial email, we don't have space for them. They require a lot and, we want them
But
to go in homes.
parks are places where there's space and awareness and ongoing maintenance. So I would just think they would be ideal. I was thinking of roundabouts, but
Definitely not putting them anywhere near cars, ever again. We have, even though it was there before us, the conflict we don't want to have to go through again. We want to be smart about it.
In the genotype. But of those organizations that I listed that all do kind of these oak restoration things, I do think Wolf Haven might be the most appropriate in terms of like, this is a public space that welcomes people and they could easily like put up a sign or commemorative.
Yeah, and I can reach out to Faye. Okay, awesome.
Was supposed to be another one?
we did they did the tree that fell down from the black farmer.
The bush butternut
Yeah, there's one of those at
Middle School and at Isabella Bush Park.
Isabel Bush Park. I was thinking that would be because there's one of those there, it makes sense to have an oak there too.
I'll bring it up with the Parks Director to see if I can. We have a lot of deferred maintenance for our parks already in terms of trees, so I can understand his hesitancy of wanting to plant a protected, emotionally charged tree that we may not be able to maintain, so I understand. We don't want to have any. It is, and so we want to make sure that we're making the right decisions and
Oh, this little baby's heart.
putting them in the right place, and there's a lot of, that's like, if the Meeker Oak final report is imminent, and we will be uploading it to our website and providing notice to people when it's there. That's the update on the Meeker Oak. But if we do need to remove it, it's still, I don't know. The saplings they're the future. It's a lot. So we want to make sure that we're doing it right. My other two updates, and I wrote down all of these organizations, and I think this is the first time that we've thought about maybe providing them to outside of the herbarium, to organizations outside of the city of Tumwater. I think I was under the impression that folks would want it to stay in Tumwater, but the thought of spreading the wealth of it out in the local area provides a lot more opportunities, and that's great because that'll help us get them out of our makeshift nursery and into places where they might be cared for better.
And the genetic diversity, even though it's the same species, is a good thing.
Yes.
So if we can, if we could trade with Pierce County for seedlings that Gary Oak that they're getting, or Oak Harbor, that would be great.
I have two other updates. One, DNR staff reached out to me offering money because they have an emerald ash borer preparedness program, and we are in the native range of of Oregon ash, and we have ash in our inventory. So they reached out to me proactively to see if they could use the remaining funds, which I still need to figure out. It's somewhere, I think, between $12,000 and $20,000 to do preparedness, and that preparedness would be getting injectors and the pesticide that kills the emerald ash borer and having that on hand. Also doing proactive removal and replanting of ash where we have it, which I think the area that we would focus on is along the Toyota dealership on Tyee. All of those are ash. They're not doing very well anyway. Removing those and planting hardier species that's a good street tree that won't be susceptible to emerald ash borer.
Two other developments, Miracet is ash, and Hersop Landing is ash, that are relatively young.
So I'm waiting to hear back from Department of Natural Resources on exactly how much money is available, but our field staff, both in streets and in parks, are very open to the idea and willing to do some proactive maintenance in preparation for emerald ash borer. It's been found in Oregon, just south of the Washington border, and in Vancouver, BC. We haven't had official sightings of it in Washington, but it just makes sense that it would be here. So I'm grateful for DNR for never got a grant that I didn't have to apply for before, so that's great. And my last update is that we got some reappointments to round everybody out. So everybody's appointments are current, and we don't have to worry about anything expiring anytime soon. Those are all my updates for tonight.
Regarding the emerald ash borer, you said that line of like sickly ash trees. I would assume that they would be looking for EAB in those trees when they take them down too?
We could. I know that what we need to look for is them looking bad at the very top is the first sign.
With their leaf.
Yeah, so declining crown tells you that something is wrong, but specifically the indicator are looking for the exit holes.
Yeah, the D-shaped exit holes.
Which, I mean, it's just looking at the branches when they cut them, but something to be aware of.
Yeah. I know that DNR sent us Vancouver, Washington's example scope of work as like, this is what you should do. And I was just going to take that lead and go with it since we have to spend the money very quickly. And theirs was proactive removal where they saw it in the inventory, where there were ash in the inventory, and getting the injectors. I think they were removing some larger ash also, which we do have in Pioneer Park. But I think we'll just do the small ones. But we should look for it. Although I think the intent is to be proactive about it, whether or not they're infected.
And maybe some considerations as to specifically large ash trees that are worthwhile to protect. I think the injectors usually last like 3 years or so. They're supposed to provide defense for that long. But if you keep re-injecting the same tree, that does also introduce damage to the hole where you introduced them.
If and when I have a scope, I will bring it to the tree board for input to make sure that it's good before submitting it to the state and city council for approval.
Are there traps and pheromones for emerald ash borer?
Maybe, but the example that they gave me was proactive maintenance and having the treatment on board.
Yeah, I think there are, I think so.
I think we'd get those out, or that this DNR would be doing it even.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know enough about trapping for EAB, but definitely worth looking at these sickly trees, making sure that it's not on them already.
That could be the first detection. Hopefully not.
They leaf out this spring.
Keep an eye out, tree board. We have no members of the public here or online.
Okay, not even Jones, huh?
I think they've been watching the recordings recently.
Okay, well, no public comment. I guess we'll move on to number 7, Arbor Day discussion.
This item is for you all to simply tell me what plants and how many to get for Arbor Day. And I believe I include the proclamation in here too? Yeah, and any edits that you want to see to the proclamation.
Brent sent a list.
Brent sent a list.
We know what we know what we gave away last year. And that was popular, except, well, I think one species that was less popular than the others.
But we did run out for the first time ever.
Did we have 100 last
We
year?
had 100 last year, plus seeds.
As the population of Tumwater grows, is there the assumption that we should offer more seedlings?
Well, we used to offer a lot more, but then we used to offer a lot more, didn't we? Used to get more trees.
We started out with 250 at the
Yeah.
very beginning.
And
We
we
cut
just,
it back,
yeah.
but they were all
getting-
bare roots.
Yeah, that's true.
And now with the
1 gallon.
containers,
Mhm.
And, I don't know if you all got the, Thurston Conservation District native plant sale announcement, list of what they're selling, and the Washington Native Plant Society South Sound chapter, what they're selling, in the month of March. Both for April, this is April, this is,
In a few weeks,
yeah, just a couple
May?
weeks now.
March.
So it's kind of interesting to see what they're selling and whether they'll meet the need for that species through these sales. So I don't know if we don't want to conflict, don't want to give away the same thing that they're selling. Or if, there's more than enough need. I know the native plant, the Conservation District is enormously popular. And I think they sell out, so not an issue of, competing with them. And they're targeting more the county outside the urban growth area, I think, for their audience.
Well, I mean, I think that's a slightly different niche, like,
Yeah,
they're not looking to sell street trees.
right.
It's native plants in general. And there's a lot more than just,
But I think that's their target audience, but based on attending the sale, I think there's a lot of urban people that come there and buy
Yeah.
trees too.
Alex, you work for the Thurston Conservation District, right?
yes. Although I just started last year around the same time as a plant sale. I don't know too much about like the inventory, what's being sold out, what's the most popular things. But it is mostly native trees and shrubs. I could imagine a lot of urban interest too, but I think these kind of
You
tree
want to see the list?
As a person who lives in the city of Tumwater, I've never felt like I wasn't their target audience, for the plant sale, because they have lots of smaller, plant options too, or things that can do well in containers on porches.
Yeah, and it is only a couple larger tree species.
Where did you get this trees last year?
I got them from Plant Place Nursery.
Plant Place,
Oh,
south of the airport,
oh,
but you ordered them ahead, right?
After you all told me how many and what kind to get.
They,
I did a bid process and they had the best price.
yeah. Who knows where they got them from, so.
Should we just do the same as we did last year?
That makes the handouts really easy for me. I don't have to recreate them or do.
If it's sold out.
And they're popular, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a nice variety.
I think that's okay. I did see there's a 9 after April on the proclamation.
Rather than 19.
No, up above,
Oh, here.
right there, yeah.
So was there consensus to do the same plants, same quantities as last year?
Of course. I think so.
yeah.
Everybody else looked over.
They're all native plants, Alex.
We can use the same handouts.
You can use the same handouts. Doesn't even have to be an action for next time.
And we have plenty of funds in our,
You actually got budget this year, as opposed to just using my budget. So the tree board and internships line got funding.
is that a 2-year or just 1 year?
Both years. Mm-hmm. Do we want to get seeds again?
They were very popular, as I recall.
We did go over budget last year, but I think that we can do it. Including the milkweed, or should we not do the milkweed?
Milkweed's good, in my opinion. I grew some this year, not from you, but, and it was a beautiful plant. I didn't see any
Monarchs.
monarchs, of course, but,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a pollinator mix, that I can get that's for this area, native pollinator plants.
did you ever get any feedback from people who took either the seed or the trees?
Nope.
I'm just curious as to whether they did well or how people felt about it.
Not last year, but the year before, I did the tree care pledge.
Yes,
And so I have the addresses for, and some contact information for the folks that got the trees, or the plants, not last year, but the year before. And I think I reported back to you all that we had like 20% Tumwater residents and everybody else was from everywhere else.
yes.
So to your question earlier about Tumwater's population growing, I don't think we need to do much about that in terms of adding more plants. We're not really hitting that many Tumwater residents to begin with. But native plants are helpful for other species that do not abide by city boundaries that also need the support of these plants.
Well, and last year we had great weather, and that's a big part of it, so, I mean, if we have good weather, then lots of people come, and we give them away, and if we have bad weather, then they don't.
Okay, so same plants as last year, seeds again, fix the typo on the last whereas, and same handouts. Do you all plan on being available to volunteer? That was another action for this list, volunteer staffing,
And it's April 9th?
April 19th.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yes.
And you need help earlier loading the plants, I'll be there. Yep.
I'll probably conscript my husband again, help as well. And I will reach out to parks about the potential tree planting, see if they're getting one donated or if we need to purchase one. Because I know that that's something that you all bring up every year.
We had posters and handouts.
Yep. Have plenty of those, and Arbor Day pins and bracelets and pencils.
Posters seem to be popular.
We have some posters still, not a whole lot.
Are those posters not available anymore, or?
I don't know. I'll look into the posters. I just inherited them, so I don't even know where they're from. But
I think they're Forest Service, but DNR used to distribute them.
look at,
I think there's some information on the poster itself, or,
we have them framed in my office, so I'll look tomorrow morning. I have the,
Time did we start? Was it 8:30 we started loading?
so the event is from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., so 9, yeah, 9 should be fine. The day before, I'll load them in the truck, get them at the nursery, load them in the truck, park in the fenced-in area, and leave that morning. We unload them. I'll bring the tent again. That was helpful, I think, for an additional table for all the literature. We'll bring, we have even more books now. I've expanded the library that you started, including buying a bunch of different pruning books for our staff so that they have that available to them after they did the pruning workshop. So I'll bring the small tree library for people to look at but not borrow.
I would be willing to make a list of books available from the Tumwater Library.
If you would like to check them out, too, you can bring them. And just be advised that I'm sure you know because of Ridge, but the library over here is currently, I think Thursday, they'll stop doing operations of any kind over there until the summer. And you can pick up books at the, starting on Thursday at the headquarters. They're doing renovations inside.
Oh. You're gonna build a castle.
I understand they're getting new carpet. That's one of the things. They don't need new lights because I did that for them a couple of years ago.
Right. Hopefully they'll keep the clock and the statue.
I'll see why they would get rid of that. All right, so any other discussion on Arbor Day for today? Okay. Six, the proclamation. If anyone would like to come receive the proclamation as a tree board member, you're invited to formally receive it at the council meeting if you'd like. I think Trent's got it last year.
I don't think I got it last year, but, when is that council? meeting?
19th.
So
Oh,
that-
no, 15th, sorry. 15th
April?
of April.
Put it on my calendar.
And more than one tree board member can come. If more than 2 tree board members come, just let me know so that I can notify that there's a potential quorum of tree board members. Really like to stay within Open Public Meetings Act whenever I can. Then the,
Yes. Happy
Do my
Thanksgiving.
taxes that day. No.
the second item on the agenda today is the draft street tree list. And I've gotten a lot of questions about why certain ones were crossed off, where this one came from, so let me give some context. So if you all remember, and I think I outlined in the staff report that we've been working on this for a while now. We had a stakeholder meeting in February 2023, and another one in March, and another one in April, where we were talking about specifically the street tree code and the street tree list. May and June, we formally paused the work on the tree code amendments, including the street tree code and landscape and the 16.08, to focus on advocacy for the wildland urban interface code. Also, by the way, there's the same bill that we challenged and won against last year. It's come back, so feel free to talk to your state representatives about that. So we're
On the federal level.
on the state level again.
Oh, okay.
So we're having to redo the advocacy again, now. So we pivoted for that in November. My intern came months after they finished their work, kind of assessing the last version that we had gotten from the consultants. That's this one here, that you all got, and cross-referencing that with the Climate Change Vulnerability in Urban Trees, Puget Sound Region, Washington. Great, longer report and shorter handout that was about the long-term vulnerability of different tree species found in this area. The street tree list, was provided by the consultant. Amita did the work, and I've done very high-tech edits over the past year. And here I have red and green X's and check marks for the trees that would do okay, which is how I crossed them off there, based on Amita's research.
So they're crossed off here,
If they were vulnerable according to that study.
that's what,
Also, they're crossed off here because on another copy, we did the Principles of Urban Forestry training with DNR staff and our staff. And afterwards, field and operations staff suggested that they wanted to be involved in making sure that we were making good decisions on trees in the future. And then I have this crossed out version from meeting with them, of which trees they wanted removed based on their experience.
then lot.
They had a lot. I also, in May, reached out to DNR staff, and sent them the list and asked them for their feedback. And they had some suggestions, some of which removed some of these or conflicted with the crossing off of lots of things, including, our staff wanted to remove all maples from the list. But DNR staff said, you can have these. So in the attachment that you all got, there's some comments to the side where it says, got conflicting information about this tree. They considered adding Magnolia grandiflora, which is one of our heritage trees, at the Schmidt House. Hanukkah, sorry. I remember that was the point with Kevin. Removing ash trees from the list, adding a column for high voltage friendly or not high voltage friendly trees, and again, removing all maples except for those 4. So got a lot of people looking at it and giving their feedback to bring to you what you have today. The consultant, before anything was scratched out, that was their list that they provided to us. They were arborists and landscape architects based on trees that were included in street tree lists from all throughout the Puget Sound area. And this last piece here is just reminding you all that this isn't necessarily on community development's work plan, but we think that we can do it administratively, but staff capacity is tight, so we'll try our best to run with what you suggest. But I can't promise that when you all decide next month that this is the list, that the next month I'll say it's done. It may take some time and be based on staff capacity. Again, like I said, Washington House Bill 1254 reintroduces those same things that we had to spend a lot of staff time last year trying to not have. So staff time is being spent on that too. And then we have the list, which I did not add because the columns were really frustrating for me. I had to turn them from PDF to Word documents, and then I didn't want to remove or add any. So the Magnolia grandiflora is not on here, but it can just consider it added if you all are okay with that.
It's a big tree.
We can not have it.
I mean, it's beautiful.
You all are experts too. It's gone through a couple different levels of research, field expertise, DNR staff to get, and the consultant.
It's beautiful. I have them in my backyard. They grow slow.
I have some suggestions.
Yep.
One is, it would be helpful to me, and I think the future board, if you could document who has reviewed this.
I thought that the staff report would be enough, because adding the comments for every single, it just was gonna be too much for a screen, but I can take your advice and do it differently.
I don't think you need to add a column. I would just put a footnote at the end of the document saying, this was reviewed at this date by this organization, and this was, list the organizations who've reviewed it. And
As
that would
opposed to
be-
putting it in the staff report.
Yeah.
Or is that this one?
Jim created this.
So I took the report that she sent us that I had never seen before, because it wasn't what was on the web.
Because staff hasn't been ready to share it publicly yet,
Right.
and now it's out there.
Okay,
Y'all have to
so,
work on it.
so I was confused because I'd never seen this before. And what was on the web was
I only.
one page.
Yeah.
So what I did, on the first two pages, I started on the first two pages, and I added another column and discovered that was a mistake. So, after that, I didn't include that extra column to make comments. The yellow notes are actually recommendations from Brent. The green notes are recommendations from the University of Washington for small street trees. I didn't make any recommendations. I just added Brent's and the UW's. There are a couple cases where the draft we received, a species had been crossed out, and Brent or the university recommended them. So I didn't delete what had been deleted before by previous editors. I just added the line with the same species with Brent's comments. So for example, on the first page where ginkgo biloba is crossed off, Brent said, I think it should be in there, and added.
I can tell you that the ginkgo was removed because of climate vulnerability.
It survived 6 million years.
Because of what?
Climate vulnerability, it was in that study.
I don't know why you could say that.
Well, every other ginkgo has not survived.
Oh, you mean the other species of ginkgo?
Mhm.
If there was.
Isn't there pollen evidence, fossil pollen evidence?
I don't know that. Okay. And of course, you only want the males. So there's a female on the Capitol campus that,
No?
you can smell. Yeah, right near, Employment Security Building off of Maple Park Boulevard. But then there's a beautiful male up by the fountain, where the totem pole used to be, where the rose garden, sun garden used to be, is. And again, Douglas fir, Brent thought it should be there
That was also
Horrible
removed.
street tree, though.
because,
I mean, any conifer would make a horrible street tree.
I mean, our street sweeper team would feel differently.
Yeah, or
yeah,
They would feel differently?
Yes, because they won't have to sweep up the leaves.
well,
Oh, but they constantly.
if you don't
drop,
have,
you know,
It's also very large. I mean, we have them over here and,
Right,
there's
and
no
you
lines,
can't see around them.
like most nude subdivisions.
yeah, and
Oh,
they're
and it doesn't
vulnerable
tear up sidewalks.
to climate
and
change.
it bushes on the bottom, right?
It can, well,
So
if you've got
people, then
room,
they'd be
yeah.
all annoyed and cut it, and then it looks ridiculous.
Well, you could prune it up 20 feet and it'd still be 100 feet of tree.
These are all.
Anyway,
Oh, goodness gracious.
So these are my comments, and one of the things I suggested is that we review the characteristics we want for
Yeah.
street trees.
Yeah.
And of course, we use that as the criteria, which is, I assume, what's here. But, previously, on the web, it says, no nut trees, no fruit trees. Makes sense. More and more of the subdivisions, I don't know if it's a code, there's no longer overhead lines and new subdivisions,
Right, with-
Yes, that is the code thing for new
okay?
development.
So we don't need to worry about line clearance in new subdivisions, but we, of course, still need to worry about line clearance other places. So it's a challenge, unless we put that in the comments, that, and I assume that's why we've arranged these by size. So that people can say, well, what's my height limitation?
well, and these are arranged by planter strip width as well.
I put up on the screen here just so that we know that this is the extent of our approved street tree list currently.
That's on the web.
This is what is currently there, which has 0 native plants.
Well, and
Right,
isn't
and
Pilot
conifers.
considered this
Do we,
Holly
and the challenge,
considered-
I guess, Trent,
nuisance tree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was curious, Trent, I assume, we can put lots of names on the trees. Some of these, get way down to cultivars and varieties, but if they're not available,
Right,
Uh,
that's something else, like, there's a lot of things that I'm not familiar with,
Right.
which doesn't mean it doesn't exist, it's probably just not commercially grown.
But maybe what we want to say is genus, species, and then characteristics of the variety that you're gonna buy from the store. We don't want it to get this big or this wide or whatever.
Right, similar in size, or,
Because specifying a particular variety, it may be here this year, but there's no guarantee you're gonna be able to find this.
well, and some of these are like trademarked,
Yes, patented, yeah.
yeah. Which are also hard to get sometimes, but they have like, the non-trademarked one.
So, but, I mean, are people gonna go online and order this particular variety because it's on our list? I don't think so.
Oh, they might call it out, and then it'll end up on the plans, and then when it comes time to plant them, they might not be available.
So a commercial developer would select a variety, a cultivar. And get it, yeah, and contract with a nursery, and they would find it someplace.
I mean, you could be a real hard ass like Olympia, require all tree substitutions to be ran through the city forester or planning department.
Once we get them. That's another thing to consider too, is, if we don't get the urban forester because of the grant thing, this will be Alex and Tammy confirming that all of these are what they are.
Well,
Limited tree knowledge.
okay. You're thinking developer, I'm thinking homeowner. And the homeowner isn't gonna tell you that they.
Homeowners aren't gonna.
Right, they're not.
And they don't have to submit plans.
Be HOA.
Yeah, it's gonna be a short plat, commercial development.
They
Anything
usually
that requires
say
a
what
permit,
shouldn't be, and
a building permit would need, except for with a house, you don't have to for residential.
And Trent, when, I don't know if I sent this to you, when I asked, the urban forester at Olympia about their list, how they got it, he said they also changed their standards for the root space and sidewalk specifications. Is that something Tumwater should do?
That would be part of amending the street tree
Yeah.
code, which is not in
Or-
plan, that's street tree code, but that's not,
So too.
yeah.
yeah, but those aren't happening this year.
So Olympia may permit some trees because they've changed the specs on their sidewalks. And I asked him, Jason, who came up with this root conflict category? I mean, who's the expert on root conflict? And he didn't answer. He said his predecessor selected these trees as being, not having root conflicts. But I'm wondering, is there some authority that can say this species has root problems and this species does not? I don't
They're
know.
probably
that.
shallow rooted trees.
I mean, your operations crew,
Staff can, yeah, and I think that's why a lot of these, because I asked not only our streets crew, which is the ones dealing with the street trees, but also our operations and maintenance for stormwater and water utilities, because we also have conflicts with, telemetry antennas and fences and plants that are planted near utility boxes and break meters and things of that nature.
and roots in sewers and
Yep.
water lines and storm drains. Yeah.
And that's
Stop signs.
how we got to this, much diminished list, which is still more trees than we have on our approved street tree list now.
Right. Right. So I thought, are we recreating the wheel? If Lacey, Tumwater, and Olympia all have lists of recommended trees, and somebody else has done all the research, and we just take their list and say, yeah, that works for us too. So, I mean, this list that Alyssa sent out to you, comparing what Tumwater says are preferred trees, recommended trees versus what Olympia says versus what Tumwater, Lacey says. And there's not very many trees that are all three cities recommend, which surprises me a little bit. But some of the cities, like Olympia, get way down to cultivars, you know. This cultivar is okay, but that cultivar of this species is not, I guess. And again, where do you find this plant if you're saying this one is all right, but that one is not? So it may be helpful. My understanding is Lacey doesn't even have an urban forester or a tree board. I don't know who made their list.
They have staff that,
Harlan is there, like, on
They have a
call.
consultant.
Kevin,
Okay,
Yeah.
so is it helpful to take a look at what the other cities, our neighbors have said are okay? And consider that?
we feel confident about their judgment and decision-making, which sounds like you were asking some questions about why certain things
Right.
are there. And
Right. Not getting,
the predecessor isn't here anymore to answer that. It could be that there was a legitimate reason and that there might have been some great documents, but that Jason was just not privy to it.
I've also I've made a phone call into Home Depot Home Depot and Fred Meyer saying, is there any way we can get a list of what your trees you're gonna sell this year? So we can see how it compares with what we're recommending. Maybe there's new varieties that are coming out that are gonna meet our needs, and they're available. So shouldn't we add them to the list? I don't know if you already have that information, Trent, or is there some place that a developer can go and say, what's available?
Well, I mean, there are plant brokers. Typically, you would contact a plant broker if you were looking for plants. And they, like, 90% of the trees come from Oregon. And if a new tree is, developed, I guess, for lack of a
Bred,
better
yeah, new
word.
breed.
I mean, it takes years for it to get
Right.
into productivity, so it would be hard to, like, figure that out.
One of the challenges I have, just as a scientist or ex-scientist, when I was growing trees for reforestation, we only planted trees that came from that seed zone, and often only that same exposure. So if we were replanting the north slope of Capitol Forest with Douglas fir, we only planted trees that were grown from seed from that site on that side of the hill. We were that specific about the genetics and the seed source of the trees we were planting. Of course, we're doing forests,
Right, you're trying to maximize your
growth,
growth and cut.
right? And here we are getting ornamentals from Missouri and Oregon and wherever and putting them on our streets and saying, well, maybe the hardiness rating works, but we don't really know if this is a plant that's suitable for our environment, particularly the drought we have in the summer. Can this tree survive 80 days of no rain, which is not unusual these days in Tumwater?
I mean, some of the trees that we get come from California, but we've, in the past, had problems with more, like, frost damage than
Yes,
drought, because we didn't have the drought problems that we do. So I mean, as we get more plants from Idaho and southern Oregon, we'll probably see that they're better adapted to our, I know, like, Olympia has, they don't want you to plant any western red cedars.
because of the drought.
Yeah. So, and they want, like, shore pines and stuff, like, that's
Drought
further
tolerant.
south, more drought tolerant.
And wasn't that a criteria that your intern used? Drought tolerance?
Yes, that was part of the vulnerability index
So this should be accurate for drought tolerance.
and heat, extreme heat also.
That's great. This is a huge project.
Yeah. It's
Right.
not going to be accomplished today. It's also scheduled for next month for discussion as well, and if it needs to continue into future months as well, that's fine. Like I said, staff didn't budget time to take care of the administrative update for this, so take as long as you need.
I'm wondering if, I converted this from, PDF to Word so that I could do it. And I'm wondering if you could send it that way to us, so that
Word format.
in the next month, we can fiddle with it without messing up your format and stuff. I'm wondering, because of all the work that Alyssa and her staff have done, if we shouldn't ask her, just go ahead and delete the ones you've crossed off. It's good to have it as a reference, to know that we crossed this off in 2025 because it didn't meet these, requirements. Because there's just a lot of them that have been crossed off. So we don't need to look at those.
Maybe keep them all at the end.
I was gonna say, maybe you could say,
A list of deleted ones at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That's great, good idea.
A record that this was considered and rejected for whatever reason.
Great, good idea.
I was tempted to delete them before I gave them to you, but I knew you would want to see the ones that were crossed.
Yeah. And I'll continue to reach out to the local retail nursery, but Brent, I'm again thinking homeowners, you're thinking, your experiences with developers and all that. Is there any option of asking the people you work with what trees are available?
I mean, I
They're gonna
can
say-
get like availability from brokers that we work with.
Oh,
You could also reach out to the plant place, the
okay.
nursery where we get our stuff for the arborvitae here in Tumwater.
Although they're buying those from a broker.
And Trent, do you have any, knowledge that the broker's list would have gone through a similar screening that Alyssa's list has gone through for adaptability and hardiness and drought tolerance and all of that?
Well, most tree brokers are basing theirs off of sales. So whatever is getting specified, that's what they're growing. So if there's certain trees that people are specifying a lot and they're saying, then they'll grow more of those. So there is kind of an ebb and flow of, you know,
What's popular?
availability
Yeah.
based on popularity. And some of that might be just like hardiness. And I mean, any landscape architect who's worth a grain of salt would like take those things into account. Things that aren't messy and, you know, are drought tolerant.
And hardy and bush.
Yeah.
So, and your brokers, are they, is their range, location small enough? I mean, is it Washington State, or is it Tumwater, or is it
No,
Thurston
it's
County?
more like California, Idaho, Montana, yeah,
Regional.
yeah.
So we don't want regional. We just want eight B.
I mean, well, that's just where the plants come from,
Okay.
yeah.
Is there some way that their list will tell us that this is, appropriate for our community?
Well, it would just be if it's hardy. I mean, it would be.
It'll just, I mean, is it, they show the hardiness zone on the data someplace?
Yeah, I think
So
so.
we could just say eight, if it's not eight, it's not 7 to 9, then we're not considering it. Okay, I think that would be helpful, if that's possible.
I'll dig up what I can find.
Right. I'm assuming that new cultivars are being developed every year. Like, I know it takes 10 years usually for genetic mutant or a breed to get into production, get on the market. But, if there's something coming that meets our criteria, it would be great to see. It's a good one. And, do we have a list of our criteria? I mean, your intern. Can we
So-
see that someplace?
Do you remember when Amita presented? It was, based on a study that they didn't do, but that they found, and then they cross-referenced the study with our list, with this list. That's the extent of what they did.
Can we,
Want me to resend the study?
maybe you send it to me and I'll summarize it or something, if you could. I don't think everybody has to get the whole thing, but unless anybody else wants it. I just think it'd be helpful to document, these are the criteria that have been used to create this list and that we want to use in the future.
Well, and didn't the urban forester have some sort of, I mean, obviously they had some sort of metric that they used as well.
For the consultant, putting it together? Yeah, they were looking at, street tree lists from throughout Puget Sound, what was done in other jurisdictions and their professional expertise.
So they not only deleted, but they also added to this list.
That list is entirely, created by the consultant. As you can see, it's quite different from this. So they created that, and then, interns, field staff, DNR,
Edited.
dwindled, edited, yeah,
So the non-crossed off things were put in by the
by the
consultant,
consultant.
and they were crossed off by DNR or the staff or your intern?
Yes.
Ah, interesting.
I mean, the interesting thing on this list, which is not very helpful, is the minimum planting strip.
Yeah.
Doesn't go below 8 feet or 6 feet, and most planter strips are only 4 feet.
I think, because this was getting developed while we were also working on the draft code, I think we were changing the minimum planting.
Like the planting width.
But that's another comment that, Brent made, was that most of the ones that are crossed off are the small trees. And how that then reduces the amount of small tree diversity that folks have to choose from.
And then he suggested some additional small trees that I added to this. And some large trees,
But
but
yeah, I think, 6 feet seems to be the smallest.
I mean, it would be helpful when we redid the code.
3, there's a 3,
Oh, there's one.
or,
Or there's a couple, but like, most of them are pretty large.
and I didn't put, do you know, where did you get that data?
the consultant.
Okay, be interesting to see where they got that.
We're not even in contract with them anymore for them to necessarily owe me an answer if I asked. I could ask.
Well, or if there's something in their report that says footnotes where they got that field. I'd like to have that document.
Yeah, we have the draft street tree plan as part of that, but I definitely don't want to put that on a tree board, packet because it's not adopted. And I don't want people to think that it is.
Yeah, just, if they gave you a report and there was a footnote saying, this is where we got this data, I'd like to know what that footnote, what.
There wasn't.
I'd like to know if it's credible.
We were just starting the street tree list when the work halted. I wish I had more metadata for you.
Thank you for explaining all of the work that's gone into this that you sent us. Again, I hope that we can capture that so that in the future, we'll know how it was done and how we could do it again. Again, we're supposed to edit this list every 5 years. So, it'd be great. I suspect that our neighbors will take our list and change theirs.
Generally, on the cutting edge for trees for the 3 jurisdictions. I think we're the only one with a plan.
Olympia has a, urban forest management plan. But they don't have a tree board.
Good start, though.
Yeah, and I think the spreadsheet will be a little less overwhelming for me to add some of that information if I remove the trees that are crossed out and add them as a footnote that they were deleted. I just was really apprehensive to add more into this, to add context, but I hear you that it being in the staff report is not the same as it being on the spreadsheet.
Yeah, and I think we have expertise in Trent and in Brent, to get their opinions. And know, Brent sent a note as to the trees they added on the Capitol campus and why. Capitol campus is different than street trees, sometimes, and not others, so certainly he has more flexibility in terms of where he can choose to plant trees that are unique or that we want to have in this community. But I certainly would defer to his opinion on whether these trees are hardy and for our environment, and then Trent knows what works for the developer.
And Alex, you used to work on tree trimming associated with utilities too, which is an important thing for expertise to have at the table as well.
Great. And Mike knows what's out there. I mean, what's growing now.
Mhm.
That's right. Thing is, it's just like that minimum planting strip, see, it really depends on the real soil that they have in the planting.
That they backfilled in there
Right.
in some cases.
And, one of the things that Olympia does is supposedly they assign a project forester to the site. Not the ones that are just already cleared, but I mean, if there's trees there before, and you go through all this stuff and notify Jason, that this is being done and that's being done and everything. But, hey,
Do a soil and vegetation plan,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, we're supposed to be on site when they put that soil in. Hey, they call you 30 days later, it's done,
And they've covered it with 4 inches of topsoil.
whatever, yeah.
But,
It's just like.
I always wonder, that basswood on the campus,
Yeah.
that's planted above the parking garage,
yeah,
I wonder how deep that is.
yeah.
I just never talked to anybody that knew,
I don't know.
Brett,
because, those trees are getting pretty good size.
yeah. Yeah,
I worked, in the 60s for the DNR when those things were planted.
yeah.
And heck, they're
Finding cracks through the parking garage.
now.
Yeah, well, the Skyview development there, where the standing water's been for a year, last week they came in and brought more rocks. And they're putting the footings for the foundation in those added rocks.
Yeah.
And of course, so they say, what's the soil? They backfilled with rocks.
Structural fill.
So, yeah. So I was gonna, I feel like it's ethical to warn the property owner that under your house it's gonna be flooded half the year.
I've seen some like high-tech urban design, like stormwater drainage.
Silva.
Yes, those, I'd let tree roots grow underneath the pavement. Oh,
Those are so expensive.
oh.
We want those, but we can't always get developers to do that. And we can't always, I don't think we have yet.
Although-
The thing is that it's just like the street tree issue is, stormwater requires, just like Olympia, those trees gotta be in before they even build the houses. And then now with these restrictions on how many square feet you got You know, you got trees here and a driveway, and then here come the trucks.
Sidewalk, yeah.
And all the building and everything else. I don't see how some of those things survive in the first place. Gee. But hey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Talking street trees.
Yeah.
Any members of the public watching this recording, this is not the approved street tree list currently. It is still in process. Please do not refer to this as the approved street tree list for your developments.
So do we need to change the title?
I put draft in there, and we just hope that people don't search the website and find this and decide to operate from it,
What does approved mean?
that it's, when it is approved, that those are the trees that that the city, council doesn't need to approve this as administrative, but these are the ones that are approved by the city to be in street trees for right-of-way. We call it the approved street tree list.
Can we take that word off?
I saw that you scratched it out on yours.
It's draft and with a date. I mean, I like dates, you know. So I know I'm looking at the most recent version. Right of way. Can you, in 1 minute, tell me why you differentiated between street tree and right of way?
I used this document from the consultant's street tree plan, turned it from a PDF into a Word document, and just gave it to you like I got it. So
Mike and Trent, what's right of way differentiate from
it
it?
could be unimproved right-of-way that's not necessarily a street tree, so anywhere between the street and the sidewalk, or it could be a completely unimproved right-of-way where there is no sidewalk. Be either of those. Feel free to add.
Well, still in the old towns, but alleys too.
Right, those are right of ways.
Yeah.
And you've got utility right of ways.
Yeah.
And this is the same list that our engineers use to have planting designs for roundabouts and their projects. And that way, it's not necessarily a street tree, but it's part of the right of way. I'm not sure.
And the right of way could be behind the sidewalk, or it could be on the sidewalk, it depends on the development too.
So administratively, you want to use this list also for right of ways.
We'll use it for exactly what the future code says it's used for, and use the same language that's in our existing code. That's how it's referred to.
Have we used the term right of way in the code since we've been?
It's been a while since I've looked at the street tree code.
Okay, thank you.
I wish I had it's been almost 2 years now since we were really working on this earnestly. I had just started at the city when we were working on this code. Any further discussion on draft street tree and right-of-way tree list?
Going.
Which is evidenced here by it being part of our March discussion, review of draft approved street tree list. We probably don't need to look at the Arbor Day handouts if they're gonna be exactly the same. So we can skip that, so we'll just talk about street trees and have the annual officers election next meeting, if that's all right with everybody.
Sure, do we have that at the beginning?
You can have it at the beginning of the next one, yep.
We got someone.
I assume you'll give us an update on, well, what is your timeline for ordering the plants and finding out if we can get them?
I'll probably have ordered them, by that meeting and let you know.
I'm just concerned that if they say, no, we don't have those this year.
I order them basically as soon as you all decide on them, and then they sit at the nursery and wait for me so that we don't have to water them. We're ready, and it's not been an issue so far.
Somebody had a question, Alyssa. They raised their hand.
Oh,
Amy?
Janine. Right, Janine, I assume this is Janine Lindsay, you're welcome to speak now.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to give a little feedback on the quality of being able to tune in. I just came from another hour-and-a-half meeting and I wasn't having any issues, but you guys are getting frozen a lot. So I just wanted to let you know that there might be something going on with the video system there.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
you guys were freezing for like a few, like the last time it was about 10 to 15 seconds, so I missed a fair amount, but it's happened like 3 times now, so, and I just tuned in, so. Just some feedback.
Thank you. I'll check with our IT to make sure that our connection in here is good enough for public meetings. And you're a little choppy. I think we got what you were saying, Janine, but you are a little choppy on our end too. So evidenced by the connection not being as wonderful as it should be.
I did a Google search just on what makes a good street tree, and AI gave me an answer, which I thought was very helpful, and I'll be glad to share that through Alyssa. It lists urban tolerance, which I thought was interesting. It talks about air pollution. Are these trees good in poor soils, bad air, all of that, thanks, all that. Limited root system, drought resistance, which is a good street tree characteristic. Moderate size, aesthetic appeal, pruning tolerance. So ideally, we don't plant a tree that has to be pruned much, but
Right.
we know it gets pruned. Disease and pest resistance, cleanliness. I assume your operations people are telling us, I was thinking, okay, eliminate all the big-leaved deciduous trees that are gonna plug the storm sewers. And native species is a value. I was thinking of the street tree inventory, and at some point, when we make our list, it would be, I think it would be good to say, yes, this is the list, but we already have enough of these.
That was another layer that I forgot to mention that was also mentioned in the staff report that further backed up our removal of most maples, is that we have too many maples for appropriate diversity. That was one recommendation from the street tree inventory and maintenance plan, was don't plant any more maples for
But
diversity.
didn't we have like 60% were Norway maples or something?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's enough.
So I think that would be appropriate on the web, or even especially in the contract issues, say, yes, these are good trees, but we don't want developers to dominantly choose this. On the other hand, we do want developers to have a diverse group of trees. So there's a challenge there where I don't know if we say that in our code.
You don't, but you could have them plant like 3 large trees and 1 small tree, or 4 medium trees and small trees, or something like that.
And
To give you more diverse, so you don't just end up with a row of,
it's beautiful when the trees are uniform
yeah.
and everybody says, oh, this really looks nice. And that's kind of the way most developments are planted. They're all the same species and they look really nice in the summer. But we know that's not good for the environment. So can we find a way to aesthetically create a mix of trees on the street so that it still looks great, but it's a little more diverse? And hackberry, for example, is a tree that looks like elm, but is not. So, or, can we mix something with the maple, sycamore, and some other, so that we have a similar leaf shape or even form of the tree, but it's
Exactly.
genetically different. A little hard to mix ginkgo with anything, but we can try.
All the rest of them died over 6 million years now.
Survived.
Yes. I love ginkgo, just for the record. It's my favorite fall tree.
I love mimosas. The mimosa is still tree, but that tree, and it's on page
Yes.
8, right?
8, it's beautiful, but it's messy, big.
And there are varieties that don't produce the seed pods. So again, if we can somehow put that in the sterile,
The ones that don't have the blooms.
they do have blooms.
Oh, because some
Just
people
like-
complain about the blooms
Yeah.
too. I don't, I love them, but some
Yeah.
people complain about the blooms. But they are gorgeous trees.
Yeah.
That would be beautiful.
Liquid amber is street tree out here. I think American sweet gum.
Okay.
Yes.
We got those in Countryside, and they do not do
And there
well.
are sterile varieties of that.
Yeah.
But, there's, so we should specify that.
Yeah. You've seen the ones in Countryside. Yeah,
Yes.
they're not doing well.
And they're terrible for the
Yeah.
sidewalk.
They've torn up the sidewalk, people complain
Well,
about
not
that.
only, I mean, but stepping on the seed pods, the spines is a problem.
People have cut them, and,
Liriodendron is another one I think Brett was concerned about, a tulip tree, that we probably don't want on in our streets, along our streets because of root issues. Beautiful, but not in the parkway.
I think even if we dwindle this list, it'll be longer than the current list that we have, and it'll have more diversity than the current list that we have.
And once we create the list, how soon till it impacts development plans?
Depends on when you're done with the list and how much staff capacity I and people in the transportation and engineering department have.
So we don't have to revise the code before
Not
we
for the list,
change the list?
correct. That's my understanding, is that changing the list can be done administratively by my department and our transportation and engineering department. So long as Jay and I have time, we can start that process. And I've never done that before for the street tree list. Everywhere else I've worked, it's been in code. So,
Glad that it's not.
yeah, so that we can change it without having to wait.
but what if the trees that we pick need more, like Trent was saying, more space?
Yeah, then that's a conundrum.
Specify that, yeah. And I don't know where this it fits into this stuff, but as I have gone online and tried to find Tumwater tree lists and
Not easy. Our search engine
Can't do it.
optimization from the website is not great.
so is there do we need to do anything to advocate for that? Okay.
Regarding the overabundant maples on the inventory, is that the reason why, Acer are not recommended on the current?
That's one reason. Also on the ground experience with them,
The listing sidewalks.
is a combination of those two. I mean, people love to see them. They are gorgeous in the
They're
fall.
beautiful.
We get emails from people just being like, I love driving down Tumwater Boulevard, but we all know that Tumwater Boulevard is not great for sidewalks because of the maples.
Uh-huh. I wonder if there's a way to specify, like, trees that could be good trees but are not included on the list for diversity, and, like, to be considered in future updates of a tree list.
Keep a running list for the next time.
Or like, yeah, I do like that they're not included in the current street list, just in the tree list, just from that diversification standpoint. But to have that noted somewhere for folks down the line to consider if knobs need tweaking for diversity.
So we're not having the same issue that Olympia's having of, I don't know why these are not root conflict, so that we keep the records.
Lacey, on their list, they have a recommended tree list, that's 2 pages. But then they have a line here that says, if conifers are used in informal plantings, then the following species are appropriate for use in Lacey. And they have western red cedar and the larger trees. So it may not be a recommended street tree, or if there is an informal setting, I don't know what the right terminology is, Trent, for how we say, these are good trees, but don't put them in 8 feet parkways.
There's an example here on the first page of the draft street tree list with big leaf maple. Limit to unimproved right-of-way, greenbelt areas only.
Right.
For buffer areas, because it's one of the requirements.
Yeah, I mean, it's not saying that you can't plant these trees in the city of Tumwater's jurisdiction, just not as a street tree.
Right.
And there was intentions of, when we pick the code back up for landscaping and for street tree code, to have a recommended list for not street trees, but for other plantings in non-right-of-way areas, and combination planting. So, like an overstory, understory pairing. These two do well together. That is an intention for the future work, and it was an intention when we were working on it previously before the WUI screwed everything up.
Fred, what do you call those areas? I'm thinking of Costco parking lot on the north side where there's a block of mature Doug fir that everybody walks their dog in. And is that street tree?
Probably like a tree tract. If
Okay.
we Set aside some.
I can't, well, that's the term they're using on this development here, Israel Road, tree tracks.
Yeah,
And I would hope that we would encourage larger trees in tree tracks. Because we want that diversity, we want those big trees in our community.
although a lot of times, if you're doing a big development, you're erasing a lot of trees, and it's a big development, so you have to replant a lot of trees. So replanting larger trees isn't, I mean, you can do it, but then you're gonna end up having to cut down half of those in 20 years because they're all gonna be grown together.
Our preference is for developments to retain whatever trees they can and for them
Yes.
to be retained in a grove or a tree tract to meet the requirements of the code. It's our preference and the preference that we were leaning towards for the 16.08 code to prioritize the retention of larger diameter trees, especially if they're together.
Well, and Skyview is a good example, the road between Miraset and Countryside, they planted western red cedar, and they've got, 40 feet and no houses and everything, I mean, it's right, the water retention pond is there. And those trees are gonna get huge, and that's a great place for them. Because they've got 40 feet of grass before the retention pond, and nobody's gonna build a house there. So they can have a full-sized 120-foot tree there. And they've spaced them 16 feet apart and replaced a few of them with Alaska yellow cedar, which isn't my favorite, but,
Some of them look dead though, too.
great, thank you.
I appreciate you
And then your
letting,
hand,
yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
you're
Here-
choppy, but yes.
Oh, okay, well, anyway, if I can get this out, I appreciate you letting the public interact here. It's really nice of you guys. I wanted to just say that to me is one of the things we'd certainly love to see jurisdictions incentivize and really prioritize in their code is the groupings of trees such as you see at Costco or such as you see at Capitol Mall. There's even a line of heather at Capitol Mall that it may have been taken out for this Fuji steakhouse fiasco where they're putting in the fast food restaurant instead. But that was a major amount of trees and then some really important habitat. And the bees come in the spring to that heather, and it's hugely important to the insect population on that west side area where you don't have a lot of other, you don't have a lot of other habitat or trees. So anyway, I just wanted to confirm, I wanted to support that idea that if there's any way to really incentivize builders, or do it through code regulation, not allowing them to just replant trees because there is no comparison between old, totally carbon mitigating big Doug firs and anything that you're going to replant. It's going to take decades for that tree to grow. So, as we know, trees are so important for, stormwater mitigation and rain saturation and air cleaning and shade and, all the things that trees give us. That is so crucial to, to keep those big trees. And I just want to say, wow, let's double up our efforts to, to make that happen because developers, we have allowed them to mow down those trees for a long, long time. And I think it's time we really change, that, that formation, we change that ability to do that. Thanks for letting me say that.
Thanks, Janine. I think we've reached the end of the agenda for tonight, unless
Okay.
you have other items that you would like to discuss.
I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Okay,
I think so.
I'll try to gather up some information on trees that are available.
Would the local nursery help, Watson, Garden Garden?
I'll check with them.
They might be,
And the barn,
have, yeah, in the barn, have more information than
and,
the developer, or than the big department stores. You know, Fred Meyer's just sells the butterfly bush, and that's considered a weed.
Right.
So does Home Depot. I mean, I love the butterfly bush, but. Yeah, it's, you're not supposed to be planting it. So yeah, maybe Watson's or the barn would be better to.
Okay, well, I move to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, meeting adjourned.